The NFL trade deadline is closing in fast, and the buzz around Miami Dolphins football just keeps heating up. Rumors are flying everywhere, and today, we're breaking down some of the biggest ones. Reports from ESPN suggest the Dolphins might be fielding calls on a few key players, and one name that's turning heads is wide receiver Jaylen Waddle. But before we dive deeper into that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. And of course, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. We drop fresh NFL stories, trade rumors, and analysis every week, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's talk about Waddle. According to ESPN's latest trade candidate rankings, Jaylen Waddle was listed as the number 2 player to watch heading into the November 4th trade deadline. And honestly, seeing Waddle's name there just doesn't sit right. We're talking about a 26-year-old receiver who's become a cornerstone of this Dolphins offense. Sure, maybe ESPN's list was based on talent and trade value rather than actual likelihood, but still, no fan wants to see their WR1's name floating around in trade talks. Insider Jeremy Fowler reported that while Miami has no plans to move Waddle, there's been some league interest. His report mentioned that although the Dolphins are struggling this season, sitting at 1-6, the organization still views Waddle as a long-term building block. He's owed about $36 million through 2026, not bad for a receiver of his caliber in today's market. Fowler even added that most league executives expect Miami to hold firm unless something completely unexpected happens. And honestly, that's how it should be. Trading Jaylen Waddle would be a mistake, plain and simple. He's homegrown talent, drafted in the top 10, respected in the locker room, and beloved by fans. You don't trade away players like that. He's consistently been one of the most dynamic and productive wideouts in the league. Easily a top 15, maybe even top 10 receiver when he's on his game. Yes, he had a quiet outing against the Browns last week, but let's be real. Those conditions were terrible, and even Tua Tagovailoa struggled. Look back at the games without Tyreek Hill, against the Chargers, against the Panthers. Waddle showed exactly why he's a player to build around, not to shop around. ESPN may have given his trade chances a 10% probability, but let's be honest, that feels way too high. In my eyes, it should be closer to 0. Honestly, that trade probability should be 0%. Trading Jaylen Waddle would make absolutely no sense. Still, according to ESPN, if Miami ever did consider it, 2 teams could be potential landing spots: the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants. Among those, the Giants have generated the most buzz online, with fans and analysts speculating that they might go all in for Waddle. But as a Dolphins fan, I'm hoping that never happens. Waddle belongs in Miami, and I don't think the front office should even entertain those calls. Now, let's throw it to you. Should the Dolphins trade Jaylen Waddle before the deadline? Drop your take in the comments. Type Y for yes or N for no. Here's the thing. I get why some fans might argue yes. The Dolphins are clearly in a rebuilding phase, and not every player on this roster will still be here 3 or 4 years from now. But tearing it all down, that's not the answer. When you rebuild, you still need cornerstones, the foundational players who can carry your team into the next era. Jaylen Waddle is exactly that. He's a top 15 receiver, just 26 years old, and under an affordable contract for the next 3 seasons. He's the kind of player you build around, not trade away. And if the Dolphins end up drafting a quarterback in the top 5 next April, having Waddle there will make that young quarterback's life so much easier. A reliable, dynamic wide receiver like Waddle can speed up a rookie QB's development both on the field and in the locker room. Look across the roster. There aren't many true pillars right now, but there are a few worth keeping. On offense, Jaylen Waddle, Terron Armstead, and Devin Achane stand out as no-brainers. Armstead continues to look like one of the premier left tackles in football, elite in pass protection, and improving steadily in the run game. Waddle and Achane, both explosive, both young, and both among the best at their positions. On the defensive side, Chop Robinson and Kenneth Grant are 2 names to hold on to. Sure, they're young and still developing, but the potential is there. Robinson showed flashes during his rookie year, and Grant, despite early struggles, just had his best performance yet against the Browns. The Cleveland offensive line might not be elite, but Grant's tape from that game shows progress, discipline, and confidence. It's way too early to write him off. He's raw, but he's growing. And that's exactly what this stage of a rebuild should look like. When you watch Kenneth Grant, you can tell there's still something there, real potential. Unlike some players who already look done, Grant still flashes the kind of strength and explosiveness that made him a first-round pick just 6 months ago. It's way too early to write him off. He may be raw, but the foundation is solid, and that's why I still see him as one of Miami's defensive building blocks. Now, let's shift gears to something unexpected, a possible trade target that's caught everyone's attention: Jakobi Meyers. ESPN recently listed him as the 5th overall trade candidate, and surprisingly, the Miami Dolphins were mentioned as a potential landing spot. That's an intriguing idea. Meyers has quietly become one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL over the past few years. Back in his final season with the New England Patriots, he was Mac Jones' go-to guy, putting up over 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. Despite being that reliable target, New England let him walk in free agency, and that's when the Las Vegas Raiders swooped in, signing him to a 3-year deal worth around $36 million. Since joining Vegas, Meyers has done nothing but prove his worth. Even with Davante Adams lining up beside him, Meyers has remained a major factor in the Raiders' offense. He's coming off a 1,000-yard season, showing consistency, intelligence, and toughness, the kind of traits that fit perfectly in Miami's system. If the Dolphins truly wanted to add another reliable weapon for Tua Tagovailoa, someone who can create separation, run crisp routes, and make tough catches, Jakobi Meyers would be a fascinating fit. He's not flashy, he's just solid, dependable, and productive. And sometimes, that's exactly what a team on the rise needs. Can Jakobi Meyers be a true number 1 receiver? Probably not. But as a WR2, he's exactly the kind of player every contender wants. ESPN listed his odds of being traded before the November 4th deadline at 35%, which is surprisingly high. Among the possible destinations, the Steelers, Dolphins, Giants, and Patriots were mentioned, and Miami ranked second on that list. That alone caught my attention, because stylistically, Meyers makes a lot of sense in Miami's offense. If the Dolphins keep Jaylen Waddle, pairing him with a consistent, tough slot receiver like Meyers would be a dream fit. Waddle is the explosive, downfield threat, the guy who can turn short routes into highlight plays. Meyers, on the other hand, is that steady, possession-style receiver who thrives across the middle, finds the soft spots in coverage, and always seems to be open when you need a first down. It's a combination that could really balance Miami's passing game. Meyers has dependable hands, runs crisp routes, and brings the kind of reliability that helps a quarterback settle in. In short, he'd be the perfect wide receiver 2 next to Waddle. But here's the catch: it might not make much sense for Miami financially. Meyers signed a 3-year deal with the Raiders during the 2023 offseason, and this is the final year of that contract. Trading for him now would mean the Dolphins have to pay him immediately to keep him long-term. And while I do believe in trading for players you can extend, especially younger ones who fill positions of need, Meyers may not be the right fit for that kind of move. If Miami's going to invest trade capital in a new deal, it should be for a premium position, like edge rusher, cornerback, or offensive line help, areas where long-term impact truly changes your team's ceiling. And speaking of edge rushers, let's talk about Jaylen Phillips, another big name showing up in trade discussions. ESPN ranked him 8th overall on their list of trade candidates, right behind stars like Mark Andrews and Chris Olave. That's a bit surprising, but it shows how much buzz there is around his name. Insider Jeremy Fowler reported that both Phillips and Bradley Chubb have been mentioned in league-wide conversations, but multiple teams believe Phillips holds more trade value due to his age, upside, and potential to become an elite pass rusher. A string of injuries may have slowed Jaylen Phillips' rise, but make no mistake, his potential is still sky-high. Head coach Mike McDaniel addressed trade speculation this week, calling all current Dolphins rumors baseless, yet that hasn't stopped the chatter from growing louder. According to ESPN, 3 teams have been floated as possible destinations if Miami were to make a move: the Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco 49ers, and Detroit Lions. ESPN gave Phillips just a 30% chance of being traded, but honestly, that might be low. If you ask me, it feels closer to 50-50ths. From a business standpoint, a trade could make sense. Phillips' contract expires after this season, and with major organizational changes likely coming by 2026, possibly a new GM and new head coach, there's no guarantee this future regime will view Phillips as part of their long-term plan. They didn't draft him, they didn't develop him, and they might prefer players who fit their own defensive scheme. If Phillips hits free agency, he could easily command $15 million or more per year, given his age, just 25, and first-round pedigree. Miami has to decide whether they want to pay that price. or move him now while his value is high. Trading him before the deadline could prevent losing him for nothing in the offseason. So, let's hear it from you. Which player on the Dolphins roster is most likely to be traded? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. As it stands, the two names drawing the most league interest are Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. Fowler's report confirmed that both players are on the radar of multiple teams, but Phillips is the one who could bring a stronger return. He's younger, more explosive, and has shown better consistency both as a pass rusher and against the run. Yes, Chubb has 4 sacks this season, but Phillips has simply been the better overall player. And here's the reality. If Phillips is gone next year, Chubb might not be far behind. He carries a $30.1 million cap hit for 2026, which makes him tough to keep long-term. If Miami trades Chubb now, they'd save $7 million for next season, but eat a $23 million dead cap hit. Not ideal, but manageable if they're fully committing to a rebuild. On the other hand, waiting until the offseason opens up more flexibility. A post-June 1st trade or release would free up $20 million in cap space with only $10 million in dead money. The Dolphins front office has tough decisions to make. Do they keep these veterans and hope for a turnaround, or move on now and start building for the future? One thing's certain, the next few weeks could define the direction of this franchise. At the end of the day, the Jaylen Phillips situation is actually pretty simple. He's not under contract next year, which means moving him now doesn't affect your future cap or flexibility. So honestly, why not trade him now and get something back? You could probably land a 3rd or even a 4th-round pick, and that's value you don't just walk away from. That'll do it for this Dolphins trade rumor update. We'll be back later today with a live show and another video, breaking down more moves and insider buzz. But before you go, make sure you subscribe, because remember, you might not be able to see these ESPN Plus trade articles unless you pay for them. And here, you don't have to pay a cent. So hit that subscribe button, stay locked in, and I'll see you later.